Welcome to Blue Talks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here at Columbia University on the Blue Talk stage. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of insight with you based on an experience that I personally had. So all of you in the audience here, I believe, are in one way or another doing some kind of sales, or there's something that we're trying to do to persuade others to offer a solution to them that would be helpful to them. Unfortunately, sometimes you've probably run into a situation where the person that you're talking with doesn't seem to be the one that can make the decision. And this very often happens in a larger group, or if you're selling into a company or into a business unit. Now, we've all heard the expression that the customer is always right. Well, I like to change that a little bit and say we want to make the customer right, because the customer's not always right. There's things that they don't know that they don't know. There's things that they may be constricted with based on their role or their ability to decide. And so when we get in a situation, sometimes we run into somebody who can't make the decision on their own. They don't have enough information. They have bad information, or it might work better if somebody else was involved with them. Now, you've probably all experienced this when a salesperson has come to your house to sell you windows or whatever the case is, and what do they always say? You got to be there with your spouse, your significant other, or whatever. Now, part of that is the psychology of it, but the reality is that different people have different ways of taking the input. So they want the input of both people that are going to benefit, and therefore give a solution that's going to be more beneficial. So with that as a backdrop, I want to talk with you a little bit and give you a situation that I was in as the customer, and what the salesperson did to help me find a solution to my problem that I could not find on my own. And I wouldn't have been able to, frankly, do it on my own. Let's rewind a little bit, and I can see from the audience there's a few of you here that might remember when there was no internet. I know many of you don't realize that at one point there was no internet, but this goes all the way back to when there was no internet, and I was working for a company called More Business Forms. That might be even a name some of you that have been around for a while might recognize. I was responsible for the internal communications for all of the infrastructure. So the CAD system, the different type of data management, information management, and those types of things. I had a problem though, because as being responsible for that, we had two buildings that were primary locations. I was down in what was called the Research Center, and about 2 miles or so away, roughly, I don't know what is that, a little less than 4 kilometers or around there, I guess, there was a manufacturing facility. So we did the design here, and the designers were here, and I was supporting them. And down at the other building is where they were doing the manufacturing. Now the problem is that back in the day, anybody remember tie lines? That between two buildings, it was literally a hard copper cable that went between two buildings. You leased it from the phone company. It was extremely expensive. The problem was the people in the manufacturing facility could not do their job well enough because the mainframe computer was down here in the research facility. So as the person responsible for the infrastructure, I started to get complaints that they were not able to access the system, the drawings. They were supporting the field where all the manufacturing machines were and where the actual production was happening. And if they could not do their job, then the field could not process the business forms, and that wasn't good for the business. So I went about trying to find out how I can fix this problem where I could increase the speed of communication between the two buildings. We could have dug a trench. Everybody's familiar with fiber optic cable now, but back then that was like on the cutting edge. It was just starting. And to go between the two buildings, it was going to be upwards of $1 million. Couldn't do that. We could have added more tie lines from the phone company, but those were running something like $30,000 a month, I think. I mean, they were ridiculously expensive back in the day, and that could have improved the communication. Well, I finally came up with the idea, based on some research that I was doing, of a microwave system. So we had direct line of sight, and on this building we could put a microwave dish, and on this building a microwave dish, and it was new technology at the time. So I called up the local representative from Motorola, and he came out to take a look at what we're doing. His name was Marty. So Marty is the salesperson for Motorola. He asked me what I was trying to do, what my situation was, and all that, and he said, yeah, sure enough, we could put a microwave dish between this building and between this building, and we'll be able to broadcast the signal, and it'll be like 10 times faster than what you have, and you won't need the tie line for the data part of the system. I thought, that sounds great. How much is it gonna be? He said, probably about $250,000, which really disappointed me. I was like, oh man, that sounds like the perfect solution. Everything else is definitely out of possibility. That sounded good until you told me the price. I cannot really afford that. My budget had kind of been eaten up. I really couldn't make that decision on my own and make that happen. Marty was very smart though, and here's where I want you to start tracking along and think, what did Marty do? And then at the end of this, I'll recap what I believe happened to change this around. So Marty started to ask me some questions. Okay, Art, you mentioned that this is the research, this is the manufacturing, and manufacturing supporting the field. Now he had an idea in his mind about something that I hadn't even thought about. He said, where is the phone system? How does the phone system work for your company? Now I didn't know anything about that, it wasn't my job. But he was smart enough to realize that the phone system also was running on the tie lines. He goes, I have a hunch. Do you mind if you introduce me to the phone people? I said, sure, I'd be glad to if it's gonna help me out, whatever you need, you know? So I introduced him to the people that were running the phone system. Unbeknownst to me, they were having a problem where the manufacturing building was complaining about phone calls coming in from the field that had to be routed to over here where the main phone switch was, and they did not have enough tie lines either. So it turns out they were looking for a solution that I didn't even know that they were looking for it. So we got together with the phone people, Marty did some calculations and stuff, and he said, look, here's what we could do. We could put in a microwave dish that will allow the data to go across this way and the phone lines to go across this way. And he told the phone people, it'll solve Art's problem and it'll solve your problem, and it'll allow you to have 40 times more phone lines, 10 times more on the data. They said, how much is it gonna be? He said, $250,000. They said, that's all? That's amazing. Let's go. So within a few weeks, we wound up having the microwave system installed between the two buildings. I got my data, they got their phone lines. Guess how much I paid for my data system upgrade? $0, right? Amazing. I was really happy, and we actually made it on the cover of a magazine and stuff because this is the very first installation of a polarized microwave. It was literally running this way for the voice and this way for the data. So Marty made good out of it because it was the first time he did it. I made good out of it because I got my data upgrade, and the phone people were super happy. So let's just review for a moment what happened here. I was somebody who had a problem. I did some research. I thought I had the right answer, but I didn't have the full answer. I didn't know about that, and I certainly didn't know about the others in my company that had the problem. Marty was smart enough to ask questions based on where he knew he wanted to take me, what the possibilities were of where I could go, and he helped me understand something that would help him. And that was, could you introduce me to the voice people? Happy to do that. Now he's talking with them, and he has a very unique solution that can take care of both of us. So the lessons are, number one, no, the customer's not always right. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It's that we want to help the customer be right. Marty wanted to help me, but he couldn't do it with just me and with just my budget. I would not have been able to go forward. What he did was help me be right by getting other people involved that also had a need. There was an adjacent need that wound up funding the whole project for both of us. The other thing that he did was he also realized that probably, maybe even coming into this, I wasn't going to be his only point of contact. And I know for sure, because I talked with him after this, it was really a case study in how to do sales. He used this model moving forward in terms of ways to uncover additional needs. So some of the takeaways that I'd like you to think about is, when you're talking with somebody, especially if it's a group, let's say that you're trying to put together a presentation or you have a solution that's bigger than the person you're talking with. Maybe they're at a lower level in the organization. Maybe they're just one part of the organization. In the worlds that I deal with IT, telecommunications, supply chain, there's a lot of times when your first contact is maybe with an IT type person, an infrastructure person like me. Well, what are the other business units trying to do? Think about your other people that could benefit from your solution, and perhaps ask if you can get them involved, because maybe the person you're talking with doesn't have enough money to fund your solution. They might want it. I mean, I wanted it. I loved it. I couldn't do it. So maybe they don't have enough money or the authority to make it happen on their own. But when you start asking questions like, are others also interested in this? What about other people who are doing something similar? Now you might be able to expand out your audience and therefore increase the need, and therefore by increasing the need, you're increasing the value that you can bring. So the moral of the story is that even though the customer wants to be right, we want to make sure they have everything they need, and they can't always know what they don't know. That's our job. We can bring our experience to help them see things they didn't even think about, and on that basis, we can grow more revenue, have happier customers, and develop better relationships. So I just encourage all of you to go out there and think about that. If you need some help, I'm glad to help you out with thinking that through and seeing what the possibilities are. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you very much for this opportunity to share my story of before there was an internet and how it was uniquely solved by my buddy Marty with the polarized microwave system. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.